Good afternoon. Packed crowd today, which is great to see. Welcome to the investiture. I guess we have standing room only, which is a good problem. Welcome to the investiture ceremony for Professor Tim Timura, now to be known as the Nulsen Professor of Practice. I'm thrilled that President Alger and Provost Wilkins are here to preside over this ceremony. But most importantly, I'm thrilled that a bunch of students that are Tim's students are here. Also welcome so many faculty, staff, and administrators from across the school. I'd like to welcome Tim's wife, Karen, and children, Sam and Libby. Maybe just wave. Charlie Nulsen and Joanne Nulsen, thank you very much for being here. Little story. So when I was in high school, I was good at math and science and not very good at writing or humanities. So I chose to go to a school, UC San Diego, which was strong in the sciences because I thought I was going to become an engineer. I did the first year classes, physics, chemistry, math, etc., did fine. And when I got to my sophomore year, I realized I'm not actually very good at engineering. So there I was in school, not great at the humanities, not a great writer, not very good at math and science. Not a good place to be. So I was playing pickup basketball one day, and there was a professor who was playing basketball. His name was Edelman. And after the game, I talked to him about my problem, my predicament. And he said, "Come take my class. I teach a Russian history class. I'll teach you how to write." And I did. So like many classes at AU, there were like 20 students in the class, and he taught me how to write. So he taught me competence in writing. Most importantly, he taught me confidence in my abilities. That's what Tim Timura does every single day, every single semester with hundreds of students. Tim teaches students the technical aspects of finance, but more importantly, he teaches students confidence. For almost 100 students a year, Tim is that professor. He changes people's lives, he instills confidence, and students, what does he call you? Superstar. If you're called superstar, you feel good about yourself and you feel like you can do anything. So when I got to Kogod 2.5 years ago, I kept hearing about this character named Tim Timura. Tim Timura this. The students are all laughing. Tim Timura that. So I asked Parthiban David, the senior associate dean, I said, "Who is this guy, Tim Timura, and where do I find him?" And he said, "Go downstairs to the terrace level, look for the room where there are students lined up outside a classroom, office door. That's Tim's office." And that's where I found him. When Zach Vlahos, our development director, and I go to Wall Street to meet with alumni at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and Barclays and in real estate investment trusts, I ask them, "How did you get here?" What do they say? "Tim Timura showed me the way." So here are a couple pictures of Tim's classes. Packed, energetic, focused. Only these are not classes. These are optional seminars or training sessions that Tim organizes on Saturdays and Sundays that last sometimes up to 8 hours, where students come to learn from Tim, learn how to invest, learn how to underwrite, learn how to present and defend an idea. They're always packed. So Tim's creative. He's created more than 10 classes at Kogod, and what he does over and over again is create a new class, teach it a few times, and then hand it off to someone else, and then create a new class. He's a workhorse. Last year, he taught 12 classes. 12. Okay? I tell him he's nuts. He tells me, "Oh, you too?" He tells me he's happy. Tim has impact. He's won Undergraduate Professor of the Year 3 times in a row. Okay? Now, we have a rule at Kogod, which is not very market-oriented, which says after you win 3 times in a row, you're not eligible the next year. So someone else has a chance this year but then he can go back to winning. He gets the most out of students. With Tim, Charlie and Joanne envisioned and funded something called REIT, which is an ability for students to learn how to invest actual money in actual real estate investment trust stocks. They don't learn theory, they learn how to invest. They're trying to beat the market, they learn rigor. They need to present their ideas on what stocks to invest in and then defend them under scrutiny from other students. Last year, we had a friend of mine come speak at Kogod, and she met with a small group of students. Her name was Leslie Hale. She went to Harvard. She's CEO of a company called RLJ Property Trust. They own, I think, around 600 hotels. It's one of the major publicly traded REITs in the country. The students asked her questions for over an hour. The next day, she called me and she said, there was a student that asked me really good questions. Can you tell me his name? And I connected them. She hired him the next week, because she goes to Harvard and Stanford and other highly prestigious schools, but she was impressed with what Tim did. Tim is, you'll laugh at this, he's a rule breaker. He comes from the private sector. He doesn't follow the rules. I'm sure he drives his colleagues a little nuts. Maybe Valentina, affirmation? Where's Val? Oh, yes, okay. I love it. He's setting a new precedent. Speaking of rule breakers, we have another rule breaker here, Charlie Nulsen. Okay, you're laughing at that, Joanne. Charlie's a Kogod alum who has created a real estate empire in Washington, D.C. Like any good investor, he sees angles that others don't see. He doesn't follow a crowd. He's contrarian, okay? And he's become not only a good friend of mine, he's become a great friend of Kogod and American University. He's unorthodox. Like Tim, he focuses on results. Okay. So when Charlie and Joanne gave their gift, they said, we want this to benefit students. So the returns that the students generate from the real estate investment trust class and from the program are directly invested into students, allowing them to go to conferences, to get training, to study for certifications. And Charlie had one other requirement for the gift that he and Joanne gave. He wanted the most accomplished students that go through the REIT program to be called Timura Fellows, and we appointed our first 3 this year. So with this gift, Charlie and Joanne broke the mold. So at most universities, endowed professorships are only reserved for scholars, traditional academics that write in journals and write scientific papers, etc. Charlie and Joanne wanted this to go to a practitioner, someone that comes from the private sector, that has won a lot, that has lost a lot, but that teaches students how to do practical things when they graduate. So I'm proud that Tim is the first practitioner, term faculty member in the history of American University to have this honor. My hope is that he's not the first, but he's one of many. So Charlie and Joanne, thank you very much. Thank you for what you've done for the school. And Tim, thank you for what you do every day. So we're going to hear... So we're going to hear from President John Alger, who's a wonderful new leader of AU. We're going to hear from our great provost. That's typical for investiture ceremonies. What's not typical is to hear from a student. But since Tim's impact on students is so great, we're going to hear from a wonderful student named Lily Oschlager. She's a finance student. She's from Akron, Ohio. She came to study political science. She had Tim's class and wanted to become an investor. She is the managing director of the REIT fund, which is kind of like the chief investment officer of the REIT fund. She's really like the LeBron James of investing in the REIT fund. And she is one of the first of 3 inaugural Timura Fellows. Lily, thank you for coming. Tim, congratulations.
all them. Good afternoon. I want to thank all of you for being here today to honor one of my favorite people and one of my favorite professors that I've ever had the privilege of studying under, Tim Timura. Dean Marchik already covered a lot of what I was going to say, so I'm going to try not to repeat him too much, but he was right that Tim changes lives. He changed mine, and he has changed the lives of every person in this room in some way or another. Like he said, I did not come here expecting to study finance. I actually spent most of my life believing that I was bad at math and had absolutely no place being anywhere near numbers, let alone financial statements. But like I said, Tim convinced me otherwise, like he convinced so many other people that they, too, could succeed in this field. As Dean Marchik said, I am one of the fund managers for the American University Real Estate Investment Trust alongside 2 other students and a team of 30 analysts and portfolio managers who are the most wonderful group of people that I could possibly hope to work with. And it's because of everything that Tim gives to us that we are able to succeed in the way that we do. In all of my academic career, I have not met another professor or teacher or faculty member that is as beloved as Tim is. And there is good reason for that. In many ways, he is in a league of his own. Like Dean Marchik said, people line up outside his office. They are always, the wait lists on his classes are a mile long. Registration is a nightmare. And it's because, like Dean Marchik said, he instills confidence in people. And it also doesn't hurt that he's a verifiable genius. The man has more degrees, certifications, doctorates, etc. than I can count on one hand. But that's not why we keep coming back. That's not why we love him so much. We love him because he believes in us and because his teaching style prioritizes us. His classes, anyone who's taken them knows, they run more like conversations than they do like lectures. Everything depends on our ideas because he knows that for us to succeed in the real world, we have to have the skill to generate and defend quality ideas to our coworkers and to our peers. Under Tim's guidance, we have the room to learn and grow and gain confidence in ourselves so that by the time we get to Smith and REIT, we're ready. And we come in every week. We keep coming back to these funds every week, to these meetings. We keep coming back to these programs semester after semester because Tim has made us believe that we can do better than last semester, that we can always go higher. That unshakable faith has given myself and many other students the confidence to go out and seek their dream careers in New York, in San Francisco, in Miami, in Chicago, wherever that may be. When I graduate this spring, I will have taken every single one of Tim's classes, and I only regret that there are not more of them. I know I speak for all of us when I say that we will miss him dearly and that we are forever in his debt. So thank you, Tim, for your faith in us. We aim higher because of it. I will now invite President Alger forward to deliver his remarks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you all here. And as Dave said, it's wonderful to have so many students here. This is just, many of us spend our days running from meeting to meeting, right? And sometimes you forget the purpose of why we're here. And just hearing Lily's remarks is a reminder of why we do what we do. So thank you, Lily, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, students, for being a part of this ceremony because it makes it real for all of us. Dean Marchik, thank you so much for hosting, and Vicki Provost Wilkins, great to be here with you. A special welcome to Professor Timura's family. Would you guys raise your hands one more so we can see who you all are? Thank you all so much for being here. And of course, our incredible donors, Charlie and Joanne Nulsen. Would you again give a nice wave so everybody can see where you are over here? Thank you for your vision and your leadership in this. We know this would not be possible, certainly, without you. And this is what it's all about, right? This is the heart of education. So it's worth spending this time together to hear about the impact that someone is making both in and outside the classroom. And dare I say, it sounds like all over the country
and all over the world after you launch these students. So what an incredible legacy. As you know, Professor Timura is the first term faculty member or professor, as Dave mentioned, and we hope there'll be many more to have the Professor of Practice to be appointed to an endowed position. This is a wonderful bar to set for the university going forward. And it speaks volumes, this appointment, about what we value as a university, that we recognize the importance of that teaching and learning that is happening in and outside the classroom, and that we prioritize this experiential learning. We prioritize actual real world impact, actual transformation of the lives of students, and innovation. These are things that are hallmarks, certainly here at Kogod. And when we hear about Professor Timura, you've heard his innovation is happening in and outside the classroom, that he had his first of a kind course that he spearheaded that challenges students from across campus to achieve sustainable gains through actual investments in ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance funds, right? Real world investing. And students learn the hard way, right? If that does or doesn't go well. But these investments are funded through our endowment. And in 2022, some of you may not know that our Board of Trustees committed to putting 1% of our endowment in ESG funds recommended by the class. So the class, you've had a direct impact on the entire university and its future in that way, which is incredible. And you heard Dave mention for the teaching, earning Undergraduate Teacher of the Year award 3 years in a row. That is amazing. So if you want to bet on a winner, this would be a good bet to make. And of course, the gift will also fund, as you heard, the Timura Fellows program, which gives a cohort of Kogod students who've demonstrated a passion for investing, financial support for that real world kind of learning experience, attending investment conferences on Wall Street, pursuing professional certifications, which are so important to these students, and accessing elite internships and professional research opportunities. So amazing opportunities for our students. And Professor Timura's work is just one example of the innovation and impact that is happening across Kogod. Under Dean Marchick's leadership, as many of you know, Kogod is focusing on areas like sustainability, artificial intelligence, entrepreneurship, and investment. These are not just the traditional academic disciplines, right? We are breaking new ground in these areas. And this focus is being noticed. Kogod's had a record-breaking year in fundraising and earned multiple accolades and awards. So just last week, for example, Corporate Knights ranked Kogod's Sustainability MBA program number 5 in the United States and number 12 in the world, rising, is this right, Dave? 70 spots. That's pretty remarkable. This momentum and the innovation focused on our world's most pressing problems is only going to become more important as we go forward. And we know that, right? That this work that is happening at Kogod, and we hope increasingly across the university, is about making a real impact and getting students not just to learn theory, as Dave said, but how to actually make real change in the world and to be path breakers in the world. So in conclusion, thinking about Professor Timura's endowed professorship, it's the 4th new endowed position established at Kogod just this year. I think we've got that right. And one of 9 that were established during the Change Can't Wait campaign. And through these endowed positions, we are raising the bar for excellence. The endowed chair position, I think most of you know, is the highest honor that a professor can achieve. It's a crucial tool to recruit and retain the very best professors that we can get here at AU. And as you've heard, it provides unparalleled opportunities for our students to work alongside the most talented people in their respective fields. So as our newest endowed professor, Professor Timura is joining a very distinguished group of faculty and staff who share a deep commitment to the AU community. So today, as we congratulate Professor Timura and bestow him with this highest honor, we also celebrate the impact that the entire university community is creating together, not just in the classroom, not just in the laboratory, but in the real world, not just here in DC, but around the country and around the globe. So with that, it is now my great honor to introduce Charlie Nulsen, who, of course, as you've already heard about, is a Kogod alum and one of our incredible donors that has made all of this possible. Charlie, thank you so much for what you've done. Please come on up.
Thank you, ladies, and come up this way.
There's the rule breaker already.
Thank you, Charlie.
He doesn't listen.
I do not listen. Anyway, very happy to be here. Lily, you're what we're doing all this for. It's unbelievable. I thought I'd just quickly give you all the history of how we got here. It started when I joined the AU Real Estate Council. I became the chair in 2014. And I was a little disenchanted with the progress of the program. There was a gentleman sitting down here named Jeff Harris. He was on the board with me, and he somewhat agreed that we needed to make more progress in the program. He gave me a call one day and said, I've got this guy. He's a friend of mine. He's a really cool dude, and I think I can hire him part-time for one class. And he says, but you need to go out and have lunch with him. And so the three of us went and had lunch. I think it was at True Food Kitchen, in one of my new buildings. And what was very quick was that as I got to know Tim, is that we shared three things. One, a disenchantment with the status quo. How's that for a Babson grad? The other is the ambition to change kids' lives or students' lives. And the third was the University of Wisconsin at Madison. He an alumni, I a parent, or Joanne and I a parent of 9 years. So we have a real fondness there. So Tim and I got together and crafted a business plan to create REIT, somewhat scripted after the Wisconsin REIT program, but it had a Timura twist to it. It was going to be performance-based with a benchmark of the U.S. REIT index. And secondly, that the students would benefit financially from beating the benchmark, real world. And that was the two principles that we came up with. We put together a business plan, multi-year funding from me to establish it. We presented it to the development office. They were very happy to accept the first year's funding, but they could not commit the funding on the second and the third year to the REIT program. So I kind of went, And I said, Tim, you get a third of a loaf. And, Tim took that third of a loaf, established the REIT class, and just ran with it. And so here we are, 7 years later. We have a fully funded REIT fund. We have created Timura Fellows, which give stipends to superior performing students. And we have given Tim a home for his career. I am very happy to tell you that they are currently taking multi-year commitments, bro. So it's a pleasure to watch Tim's career flourish. His approach as a corporate mentor rather than instructor is a breath of fresh air. I think all of the kids here are a testament to that. And Joanne and I are great believers in backing people who make a difference. And Tim is somebody who makes a difference. Tim, thanks for being Tim.
Thought you were tilting it down for me, even from out there. I was like, what's happening here? But wow. As a provost, I'm glad to learn that you teach 12 classes. I don't even know what to make about that. I'm going to have a talk with Dean Marchek. But also just want to say, Lily, I don't know if you students know how much it means to a faculty member to hear that they've had an impact in your life. That is the highest praise we can receive. And for you to be here today and show that respect to him just means so much to all of us. I'm thrilled to be part of honoring Tim Timura's appointment as an endowed professor. This appointment, awarded on a highly selective basis, breaks new ground. As you've heard mentioned before, but it bears repeating, this is the first time a term faculty member is being honored with an endowed professorship in the history of American University. At AU, extraordinary academic programs are changing the way we advance discovery and equipping our students to lead lives of purpose in today and tomorrow's world. As you may imagine, this vision requires that the most innovative scholars and teachers who inspire the next generation of changemakers in and beyond the classroom. They're gifted professors, practitioners, mentors, and leaders in their fields. They work side by side with students and conduct groundbreaking research and tackle the most pressing issues of our day. And their expertise informs decision making at the highest level in public life. Today, we welcome and honor one such scholar teacher, Professor Tim Timura. Timura's interests and publications focus on experiential learning, the individual and social change, personal development, and professional education. His works find inspiration in Cobb, Dewey, and Freire, and builds on Dewey's insights that effective learning occurs through experiential learning cycles, which involve experience, reflection, conceptualization, and experimentation. Professor Timura embodies this philosophy, viewing learning as a transformative process through which students, with educators as partners, explore how to impact the real world around them to make it a fairer and more socially just place. Professor Timura embodies the scholar-teacher idea, and his scholarship on experiential learning translates directly into what happens in his classrooms. He uses examples from Cobb and Dewey and Freire to constantly inform how he meets each class at their level to provide them the opportunity. He's committed to a pedagogy that is about experiential experiences, reflection, consideration, and experimentation, and leaving the students to do some of that work on their own. He is an inspiration to his students and his colleagues, and his students who, through their experience, reflect, conceptualize, and make transformative learning experiences. We are grateful for the generous gift to the Kogod School of Business from alumnus and leading real estate developer Charles Nulsen and his wife Joanne. We are so thankful that you support Professor Timura's extraordinary contributions to the Kogod School of Business and American University. So now we're going to present a gift, and we're going to have basically everyone come up. Now, Charlie, if you'll join us, Dean Marchek, President Alger, Lily, and Professor Timura, please come up.
You can break the rules again, Charlie. I wouldn't feel right. Where do you want to spin?
Okay.
You go in the center. You give it.
I'll hand you one. I'm going to hand you the other. Are you ready for two hands
ready,
here?
two hands.
Two hands.
You can do it.
There we
you
go.
All right, very good.
Squeeze together. Come this way a little bit. Thank you, Julie.
3, 2, 1.
I want you to. Yeah.
And now I invite Professor Timura, the Kogod, to give his inaugural address.
Yep, that's the official.
Well, again, I can't say that I could be more humbled than this gathering today and to see all the familiar faces. Again, I'm also very grateful for all the students that have come. You're the reason that I'm here, and you're the reason why this is happening. And I do especially want to thank Charlie and Joanne for their generosity. Again, REIT would never have happened if it were not for Charlie. We've had over 300 graduates in REIT since its beginning, and I think it is wildly successful beyond anything that I could have even dreamt about. So again, I want to thank everyone for their support in bringing me to this. My discussion today is going to be about a couple things that I think are going to clear up why I may be seen as a rule breaker, why my focus has been on students leading the learning event, and who's inspired me to do all of this. So we're going to talk a little bit about why, who, and what. And I think, again, it's going to clear up some questions that some of you may have about this guy named Timothy Timura and how he got here to this podium on November 14th. I have to take a little step back, and I promise this won't be the 2 hours that I suggested it was going to be. I have to take a step back because I have to kind of place this person, me, back in a little coal mining town in western Pennsylvania. This little town of Portage had a couple thousand people that were either employed in the coal mines or the steel mills. The Timuras were in the coal mines. Karen's family was in the steel mills. It wasn't a wealthy town. I know a lot of people like to talk. I came out of a humble background. Portage couldn't be more humble. There wasn't a lot of opportunity, but the people that were there made a tremendous difference. Every time from when I can remember as a little boy, anytime I came to some sort of decision or some inflection point, magically, somebody came and changed my world. And so what I want to do is I want to start out by saying thank you to a list of people who've changed my world. These aren't people who just simply were friends for a month or a quarter or a half a year. These are people that legitimately changed my life, and they've brought me to here. I would have never been here had these people not done what they've done for me. I've often asked whether I'm blessed or lucky, and I think I've concluded that I'm the luckiest person on earth because I'm blessed by these folks. You know, I'll just mention, for example, when I discovered economics and finance in college, my local banker, again, a very small bank, around here would be a branch, came to me and said, Tim, your interest allows you to come in and be an intern in this banking institution. And it really kind of gave me experience to then go on to grad school. And you see there a Bob C. and a Jim P. They were my faculty members at Wisconsin who again changed my life. It's just absolutely amazing when I think of what all these people did. And I go down through the list, and I won't take up those 2 hours by commenting about what these folks did, but let me just say that unequivocally, they changed my life, and I am forever grateful. So why is that important to today's discussion? I view this as repayment. If I went to any of those individuals and I said, how could I repay you? How could I repay you for all that you've done for me? I know that every one of them would probably say, just do something for someone else. I can hear that. I can hear that. And that's one of the reasons why I so enthusiastically want to be engaged with students. Because in each case, I'm feeling like I'm at least repaying a little debt. And it's really kind of important to me. It helps me to go to sleep at night, and it helps me to get up early in the morning to see how the markets are going to kick off, but then to go to school and teach one of those 12 classes or be a participant in REIT or SMIF. Who is it that has influenced me on my rule breaking? Okay? Everyone has philosophies. I have a philosophy of life. I have a professional philosophy. I have a philosophy of my spiritual life. And I also have an academic philosophy. And it comes from 3 individuals. Many of you have heard of these folks, but I'm going to kind of put them together in what may be a slightly novel way. And it's so good to hear the introductory comments, because all the prior folks who spoke touched on this. And so without exchanging notes and without them seeing this, you're going to see that I guess I'm being successful because those words are coming up in conversations. The three folks are John Dewey, Paulo Freire, and David Kolb. And I want to say to start out that the way to remember their contributions to my life, to what I try to contribute to the student's life, and what they've contributed to the world can be summed up in 3 E words: experience, empowerment, and educator. John Dewey was probably one of the greatest educational philosophers, probably one of the greatest philosophers of all time. When I was at Case Western University, what we did was we read almost every one of Dewey's books because Case was a strong advocate of having experiential learning. Dewey believed that knowledge comes from experiments, that it comes from experience, and that was the way that a student could internalize new knowledge and then apply it. And what you see in the last sentence that Dewey writes is that these experiences compound upon each other, and they get better and stronger or more valuable and higher quality. And so experience is the basic building block of education. Now, Paulo Freire, a lot of people know him for some of his economic philosophy. I take it more on his educational philosophy. Paulo Freire was a Brazilian philosopher who spent his life teaching poor Brazilian farmers. What his conclusion was, and again, I think most of you, if not 100% of you, are going to agree, Paulo Freire was of the opinion that education empowers. It can level the playing field if done in the right way. And so Paulo basically suggested that what we need to do is we need to understand education in the lived worlds of the participants. We got to allow them to problem pose, essentially set up curriculums of questions that are important to them. I always tell some of my responsible financial citizens that I see in the audience, again, and thank you very much. It's like having a financial literacy course with a group of people who are so in debt with credit cards that are paying 20-some% interest rates, don't have $1 to save, and explaining to them the value of joining a limited liability partnership run by David's former firm, the Carlyle Group. It just doesn't mesh. Paulo Freire said, let's make this education an empowerment exercise that transforms the individual. And the last is David Kolb. David was my professor at Case Western and then followed me to become my dissertation advisor at the University of Pennsylvania. David put a framework around this, and it's very important to understand what he said. We talk about experiential learning. David shows you in his, and he's probably one of the most noted and written and referenced experiential faculty members. What he talked about is the experience is only one part of the learning exercise. There are others. The second is after that experience is had, the student or the learner needs to reflect. Then they need to conceptualize. And what does that really mean? That means taking that new knowledge and developing a theory and then experimenting with that theory. Kolb says that if you do that over and over and over again, learning becomes a virtuous cycle. The other thing is, and this has probably been one of the most profound things, and I may have been David's last dissertation before he retired. David and I wrote about the educator role profiles. See, education in my mind, and I got this from David, is a partnership. It's not me and them, it's us. And so David said that this educator role needs to recognize that. And there's these time varying functions around a cycle that make a difference in the learning process. And I am going to talk a little bit more about that in a slide or two. This experiential learning, if I could say anything, it's that I don't think it's truly understood. When David, again, and I love it, the rule breaker, because again, it warmed my heart, not because I want to be a rule breaker, because again, I don't, but it's what I believe needs to be done in educational settings to get the most out of the experience. And what you see here is probably one of my few original works. I sat down and literally, in 2 columns, wrote the difference between traditional education and experiential education. These are the learning roadmaps, and you can see that they're very different. For example, the first one, Paulo Freire was made famous for what he argued was the banking theory of learning. He suggested that there were folks who believed, be the sage on the stage, take your information and deposit it in the student. The experiential education approach says that knowledge is created. It's not transferred. It's not lectured. It's not any of that. It's learned. And I go through this. There's another slide. And again, the first one under experiential learning. Learning takes place in the real world, in their lived world. You'll see one of the papers I wrote talks about why I think financial literacy fails to change behaviors. The reason is, again, because people in the curriculums that are developed don't take into account individuals' lived worlds. But anyway, this is a table that appears in a number of my papers. I'm very proud of this. But for anyone who really wonders how I approach things, this explains so much of what I'm about and why I do what I do. I'm going to jump to this slide because this is a big component of Tim and education and as an experiential educator. Let me tell you some of the things that I've learned from David and that I have experienced over my, if you can believe, 39 years of teaching at the college level. One of the thank yous went to Steve Buser, who asked me to teach at Ohio State when I was in Columbus. And I taught 6 years in their master's program. He gave me the start. He changed my world. Again, a classic example. David Kolb's first role that he emphasizes is facilitator. See, what he talks about is that the educator going into a classroom has to understand how the student thinks about that subject and what the student knows about that subject. See, I think one of the problems, doesn't happen at American, but happens at other places, is that people don't really take into account what the student on day one knows. I find that a lot of times they don't know what you think they know. And that's why my first classes always take a step back. And as I say, they're self-contained because I refresh in their memories what they've learned and what they've experienced before I become an expert in giving them new knowledge. But there's one important thing about new knowledge that's often forgotten. And I think this is again one of the biggest problems. An expert needs to connect the new knowledge to the old knowledge. There are reams, journals written about how that lack of connection essentially makes the new information a one-act magic show. Wow, that was great. That was fantastic. Talked about a lot of things I'd never heard before. How does it all fit? It's important to fit. Evaluator. This is, again, the experiential learning that is being witnessed in the Student Managed Investment Fund, Charlie's Real Estate Investment Trust, the Applied Derivatives course that Valentina was kind enough to allow me to teach, much to the chagrin of a number of people in here. The evaluator takes everything that you've learned and answers the age-old question that I ask all the time. If you don't know why you're in the class, step out and figure it out. This takes everything that I can teach as an expert and communicate and shows them how it's going to be used. So I give them the application and I give them examples. And then I tell them, go out and experiment. Now make this yours. And that's again what the Smith and REIT people do. They go out and make all of this knowledge that everyone in here teaches them and makes it their own through this application role that I've slid in. And then the last, and again, I was happy to hear from a couple of the speakers about the encouragement. I think there's something missing a lot of times, and again, not here because, and I truly mean that, because I know a lot of people do this. But David says you need to do two things. You need to make sure that they recognize that they could do something that they thought they couldn't do. How many times do I hear people say, I don't want to take REIT. I don't think I can write those reports. I don't want to take derivatives because I don't think I can handle the mathematics. I don't want to take, and again, the list goes on. And I say, give it a shot. Come on in. Give it a shot. Let's try and see what happens. Afterwards, and most of these people on the wall, some of them haven't had the experience yet, but I call them in and I say, hey, sit down. Now tell me what I want to hear. And of course, it's, Tim, you were right. I can do it. The next thing is this ideal self. Here's another thing that I've learned, and I hope everyone kind of understands where I'm coming from this. I can't force somebody to learn. I can't force somebody to learn, okay? I can't force them to learn. How do I do it? I show them how what we're talking about is going to be made real in their own lives going forward. I say, you know what? This derivative stuff you're going to use in finance, whether you're a financial planner, wealth manager, an analyst, et cetera, I make it real. And all of a sudden, people wake up when you say that this is going to help you find that internship or find that job. Again, all of these four are the roles that I assume in REIT, in Smith, in derivatives. Well, you get the picture. Each of these classes have projects, experiments, reflections, discussions, critiques, and they go on, and they continue to build this virtual cycle of knowledge. The provost made a comment about my research. I want to thank Jeff in part for this because despite our friendship, there are times when Jeff can say something that gets under my skin. And I came here to teach, and Jeff knew that. And Jeff said, why don't you do something on the research front? And he kind of, in his own subtle way, challenged me. And so what I did was I hunkered down and said, what is it that I want to write about? And what I wanted to write about was the classroom experiences that I had with each of the students. And so you see that the first one was what David had mentioned about the ESG funds investing. We did, I think, a phenomenal course, and it's being continued to be done by Julie Anderson. We started with a CFA ESG professional certification, transitioned into, I think, the most sophisticated case studies, and then went into actually managing and evaluating a real portfolio, a real LLC, limited liability corporation, by talking and analyzing the general partner. Again, my financial citizen paper, this is my attempt to say, here may be a reason why financial literacy, built in this plain vanilla way, just doesn't work. The third one on this page is a testament again to Charlie's generosity. This is real estate investment program, and I use Dewey's words. When experience alone is not enough. And so what this paper talks about is how we go around the learning cycle and how I follow them around and lead them to this point that, again, I think most of them could attest that they've come out more knowledgeable and more experienced than they went in. Couple more papers, same thing. This is the responsible financial citizens. Look, Ferrari said, the world isn't fair. There are people that are haves and there are people who are have-nots. All this discussion about financial literacy means nothing to people who don't have the money to go from payday to payday, can't pay the rent, can't buy the food, can't buy insurance and stuff like that. What this does is it talks about maybe where we should start is in policy. And what all of my friends there from responsible financial citizens are getting tired of is writing all these policy papers that suggest ways that we can level the playing field. Taking everything that we know about education and what we've learned, but providing not just benefit to ourselves, but to society in general. That was something that Paulo Freire was all about. And I, again, couldn't be more in line with that. I was invited to write in the inaugural journal of student investment funds. Why was I asked? Because all the papers that they requested all came about talking about the particular venue. Is 14 students the right number or 22? Should students have carte blanche abilities to buy something or sell something? I said, no. Let's just give all the responsibilities to the students. That's the way it works. And make them responsible for it. How do I make them responsible? Their grades are dependent upon it. And so they all know that I outperform as a team. It's not an individual. Anyway. And then, of course, Professor Nixpendi and Professor Harris's Sovereign Wealth Conference. I had the honor of penning a chapter with, again, one of my academic heroes, Jeff Harris. His name is first, only because it's alphabetical. Education doesn't just end here at American University Kogod. What I suggested when I came on board is that we need to actually go to the real world and ask them what's the education, what's the knowledge, what's the experience, what's the application that employers want. Just like the CPA exam, again, that Casey can talk to you about. What you'll see is the CFA, the CAIA, all of these are the professional certifications that are listed in the ads for new people to get a job. We at American have become academic partners of all four Gold Circle professional certification granting institutions. The CFA, the CAIA, the FRM, and the CMT. It's expensive to take their exams. Our students are getting scholarships, and more importantly, there's now a growing list of our students who are CFAs and CAIAs. I don't know about CMTs because it was the latest one, but we have a bunch of people taking the exam under our new partnership. I couldn't be prouder that this is taking our education to a higher level. Finally, as I got out and talked about our view here at Kogod about how to maybe enhance financial literacy and make a difference, these folks from Home Ownership, their Financial Literacy Council, granted me, again, an unknown quantity, but they granted me and folks like Natalie and Dylan and Alex and Lonnie, I don't know if I see her, but what they're doing is professional podcasts that they're speaking out to students about let's try to change the world of financial economics to make it a more level playing field. Yesterday it was their inaugural podcast. And I walked out of there and I had to walk down the street alone because buttons were flying off my shirt. I was smiling and maybe a tear came to my eye because I was so proud of the message that they sent. Look, I love this today. I love this recognition because it's a testament that Charlie sees what we talked about. And I see the students and I love all that. But I'm going to tell you, my greatest joy comes from people getting the internships, getting the jobs, and walking out of one of my classes where I shake everybody's hand on the last day. And I always ask them only one question: did you learn something? Again, thank you very much. I'm honored by all of this. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you.
David, thank you, buddy. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a day of firsts. First of all, I want to thank a few people before we close. Jeff Harris and Valentina. Jeff, you recruited Tim. You both have been department chairs with Tim. That's not easy. We just heard he doesn't follow the rules. So thank you for all the finance faculty. Thank you also for putting up with Tim. This is a day of firsts. This is the first installation ceremony under President Alger's leadership. Thank you for being here. It's the first installation ceremony for a term faculty member. Most importantly, Lily, this is the first time any student has ever spoken at an installation ceremony, and what I'll remember is what you said. Thank you very much. Enjoy some refreshments.